I'll be honest, I don't know how I'm still awake right now. I got home less than 11 hours ago, and yet here I am talking about Game On Expo 2025. Oh, right. This name will be relevant to this stream. We can skip over these. So I headed out to Game On Expo, which was in Phoenix, Arizona. And I have never been to Phoenix or Arizona for that matter. I was dropped off at the airport by my wife, and when I got there, I was expecting there might be lines because I was kind of dropped off between afternoon and evening, that sort of transition time. But I was hoping I could skip this. I was fearing the worst, but the line for TSA was pretty dead. I am, in fact, doing everything I can, holding on to what I am. Thank you for noticing. So I had no trouble, like, finding my gate, figuring out where I was supposed to go for my flight. And the gate was really crowded. The flight was pretty much full. However, I notice someone at the gate who is acting kind of strangely. He's like looking around a lot, nervously pacing back and forth, trying to talk to whatever employee he can. And I realize it's because, well, once this was all resolved, he was on the plane that had just arrived at our gate. And he got off the plane, but forgot his carry-on. And he couldn't get back onto the plane, so he had to, like, get in contact with the employees and the crew and get his carry-on back that way. But thankfully, that did eventually get resolved. As for the flight itself, my boarding position was C30, which means I was one of the last people to get on the plane. And as such, because I was on a flight that didn't have assigned seating, I wound up with a middle seat, which, if I'm ever on a plane, I usually want to be in the window seat, because that means I can just, you know, relax a bit, look out the window, and if need be, fall asleep against the side of the plane. But thankfully, for this ride, I was between one guy who was just watching Premier League football and Moneyball at various points, and I couldn't tell who he was cheering for, but he didn't seem happy with how the game was going. I think it was between Chelsea and Tottenham. And if I remember correctly, it was tied at the time. Always a few who'll take advantage of hard times. And on the other side of me was this old lady who basically just slept for most of the flight. It wasn't until the plane was landing that we engaged in any conversation and realized she's originally from Ohio. And in fact, not just originally from Ohio, but from the Canal Winchester area, which I'm somewhat familiar with. 4 a.m. brain, let's go. Yeah, one roll. That's le bâton roulé. No, Blondie, wrong football. The proper football.
Come here for soup, have you?
So while I'm on the plane, like I have 4 to 5 hours to kill because it was a direct flight to Phoenix. And I decide, because I had my Switch with me, I was just gonna play some video games. I did a little bit of Easy Come Easy Golf, but the main thing I actually had out was Monster Hunter Rise.
More murder. I should. There's nothing to be gained fighting the Fatherites head on.
So what I wound up doing was, I did most of the stuff in Rise, but not all of it. And I realized I still had the Urgent for the Amatsu fight. I just never did that. So I soloed Amatsu on the plane. I did get hit by that one huge attack that he does that basically is just an insta-kill. But other than that, once I figured out like how the monster moved and attacked, the fight was actually pretty fun. Varian says bonjour. Ah, bonjour Varian. Comment allez-vous? That's all the French I know. So for French, I know bonjour, comment allez-vous? Très bien, merci, et vous? And comment s'appelle-t-il? I'm probably pronouncing all of this wrong. And the most important French phrase I learned from the only French class I ever took, puis-je aller aux toilettes? Which is like a very rough version of, can I use the bathroom? Our French teacher would not let us leave unless we use that phrase. Oh, I take it back. I do know one other phrase of French. Ça ira. Thank you, Gojira. Choke on a baguette? Oh, that will happen in due time. And it was as we were landing in Arizona, well, in Phoenix, that I just had the thought, damn, I'm not used to seeing this many rock formations among a cityscape. Because, like, I've never been to a desert area before. I'm not used to that kind of shit. So I wound up getting in... Oh, trying to remember what time it was. It was like... it was closer to 8, I think, local time. Sir? Are you aware that you're embedded in the ground up to your knees?
I'm only trying to get a drink.
Oh, he's drunk. That's why. So, I was originally going to land like an hour before Casey and Kira, but their flight wound up going much faster than anticipated, so we landed within like 15-20 minutes of each other. And as I was going to the baggage claim, I'm going down this escalator, and at the bottom of the escalator I see dudes in like either suits or dress pants and polos holding signs that say Game On Expo. So I think they were trying to intercept some of the guests to get them to shuttles and take them to the hotel. But there were a shit ton of guests for this event. Still more than you, and you had French Canadian classes in school. I need to hear from an expert, like, how different French Canadian is to French. Because I've heard that there's quite a bit to it.
Carrots and cabbage. Aye.
So anyway, Casey and Kira have the same terminal and baggage claim that I do. And they get their bags, I get my bags. And we realize at that point that all the Game On Expo people have disappeared. there was apparently some kind of mix-up where the people who were supposed to pick up Casey and Kira and drive them to the hotel straight up went to the wrong terminal. So it was after a lot of wandering around and a couple of phone calls going, what do you mean you're at the same terminal as us? No, you're not. We did eventually hook up with the guy who was in charge of this whole thing, and he did get us a shuttle to go to the hotel. And I'm actually going to... Can I skip this?
There were more folk killed last night.
No, I cannot.
Beast, they said.
And again,
Yeah, that gives me time to find my place again.
what I just saw at Henrod's hanging tree was the
And do
last
this.
straw. We have to...
Did you hear that?
You couldn't find a full guest list? It's on their site, but it loads like X amount at a time, and sometimes for me it just breaks, so I can't see all of them.
Burn this den of evil to the ground.
This way, hero! Hurry!
So, we get to the hotel, we get to the room, I'm actually going to keep Melody for this. This is going to affect the lineup later in the game. Kept telling you to buy a badge? See, that's how they get you. So, something I wasn't expecting was, when we went in, like, you go to the lobby area, and there's, like, an in-house restaurant off to one side. And they just have, like, this big open wall leading outside. And I was like, right! It's warm here. Well, warm-ish. It was, God, I am blanking on the name of this place now. It was like Barrel and Bushel, or something like that. It was a place that just had a bunch of super casual food. And it wasn't too expensive, so we just said, fuck it, let's go for this. It's convenient. We're all too tired to bother going out anywhere anyway.
Hill from back before the old town was buried is still here after all these years.
And we're looking at the menus, and I notice that this place sells jumbo pretzels.
Visit from the Fatherets.
And both Casey and I are very much on board with that.
A green door.
And I got some nachos as well, but the important thing here is that there was a jumbo pretzel. And what's also important is that when they serve you the jumbo pretzel, they also give you like this little container of mustard seeds and this little, it's basically a cup of melted cheddar cheese that you can dip the pretzel into. I can't remember who specifically did this, but either Casey or Kira, like, made some remark about drinking the cheese. And I said, like, my Midwestern self said, challenge accepted. So, I take the cup of cheese that I had, and it is a... When I say cup of cheese, I mean, like, if you measured it, it would probably equal about 1 cup. Maybe a little more than that. It's actually kind of larger. Anyway, I grabbed that and chugged the whole thing. Look, I had to display my Midwestern dominance. First raspberry sauce, now this. I did actually mention that. And of course, as I did that, I turned to Casey and said, I was raised on the dairy, bitch! Because I have to quote Mad TV pretty much whenever I possibly can. John Midwest, who was Gordon Midwest's brother.
Hold on, hero. There.
Way ahead of you, Rabby.
No matter what befalls, you'll come right back to here.
Alright, so, we're done with the food, and then we end up just going back to the lobby and chilling for a little bit. And in the process of doing that, we end up meeting a couple of the other guests who were there, who Casey and Kira are familiar with. One of them is Dawn Bennett. She plays Kaelin Kefla in Dragon Ball Super. She's in Persona 3 Reload. I can't remember which character. And Alejandro Saab is also there. He's in Demon Slayer, One Piece, My Hero Academia, a whole lot of stuff. I think he also does VTuber stuff. So we hang out with them for a little bit, and then eventually the time comes where we want to go back up to our hotel room, which there were like 5 elevators you could use to go up and down the floors in this hotel, and it always seemed like that was nowhere near enough.
No,
Unless you were using elevators at like
we'll have to
stupid o'clock, you were probably going to be waiting like for a decent amount of time. And it's as we were waiting for that elevator that I noticed they have a menu for a different in-house restaurant that's like on the 20-something floor. I think it was called the Compass or something like that.
here.
But I'm looking at their menu. The very first thing I see on it is that they have a surf and turf option that is $79. And I go, oh, it's that kind of place.
At your command.
On your word.
But that's not the best part. They have a wine list for this restaurant.
Kill for the man.
And I decided to see, all right, what is the most expensive option for that on the menu? They have a wine that is $750. No. They're not that different, but Canadians tend to translate some English words that we don't translate. Like in France, a Happy Meal is just a Happy Meal. In Quebec, they call it Joyeux Festin. I have to call it that from now on. Joyeux Festin.
Maybe those rogues were carrying something to burn down these boards. What did you find on them?
Only French you know is Cajun French. I mean, fair enough. Laissez-les bon temps rouler. That alone can get you through life. Gotta drink more first. Yep. It is a bard character after all. Wine for the low cost of the NSO GameCube games physically. Also, wine for the low cost of a Switch 2 and 3 games. So anyway, at another point, we do end up crossing through the lobby again. Can you get the Gambit soundboard thing? Okay, hold on. I have to tab out of the game for this because I don't have a key press for it.
Oh, you nasty, mon beauté rouge. Laissez-les bon temps rouler, hein?
There you go. Oh, yep, looting that. So, we end up passing through the hotel lobby again, and we notice that casually chilling on one of the couches like out in front of the restaurant we ate at before, is 3 guys from Rare. As in like Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, RC Pro-Am, Rare.
Better steer clear.
Oh yeah, I don't want to fight those guys. Specifically, it was Grant Kirkhope, who is a music composer. I've met him at a couple other cons. He signed my Team USA soccer ball. What a sentence. Chris Sutherland was also there. He was like a software engineer with Rare. And I actually learned later at the con that he also did like some spot voice work for certain games. Like in Perfect Dark. I remember Casey was actually at his table talking to him, and just out of nowhere he drops the line, "Act your age, Joanna." Spot on in the voice, and Casey was so taken aback by this that they dropped the copy of Perfect Dark they were holding. And Steve Males was also with them. He's character designer, he did animation.
You don't want this.
Wasn't Chris the KI announcer? I wouldn't be surprised at all. But the point is, keep in mind, we see them talking on a couch in the lobby late at night on Thursday. Just remember that. So anyway, we go to like this little corner shop nearby, so that sorry,
Command me.
so that we can have like a couple of basic things, like just some water, a soda, a couple quick snacks up in the hotel room.
Cheers, friends. Chug, chug, chug.
And it was as we were doing that we realized these places do not accept cash. Like, I'm sure there's a methodology behind it, but none of the places in that area were accepting cash for anything. Like, I'm usually not the type to say, oh, gotta pay $2 for this soda, let me get my credit card, but that's how you had to do it there.
Here.
Ready.
So, we get back up to the hotel room, and at this point, Casey and I, but mainly Casey, get to work on the TV for the hotel room. It's a big flat screen that's mounted to the wall, but there is just enough space that we can reach behind it, get to some HDMI ports, and try to hook up a PS3 or PS2. And it hooked up surprisingly easily.
Ready?
Oh, I'm gonna do this.
Let me just...
It was just a very simple thing of plug in console, swap the inputs,
Was a nasty
and you're good to go. But there was a problem.
to our wounds.
There was no game mode on this TV. So there was continuously like a quarter of a second to 1/3 of a second delay. Oh, more French lore. Back in the day, Disney songs used to have both a Canadian translation in dub and a French translation in dub, so you effectively had 2 French versions and you didn't know which one you were listening to until you stumbled upon the other version. Interesting. Being real, though, the Canadian versions were better. You know what? There's probably a Canadian out there who says, "Oh, I wish we just had the straight up French versions. Those versions were better."
Ready.
Oh, that is an improvement. Nice. And now you have something for your feet. Alright, so, as this is Casey we're talking about, one of the games that they brought was Tony Hawk's Project 8. So, we wound up playing around with that a little bit. There's a way in that game that you can just instantly bail and start ragdolling. So, I started doing that. Casey started doing it as well. You can cause some goofy things to happen with that. Like, I embedded... I got my skater's head stuck in a chain link fence doing that. Clipped various things through walls and floors.
More troublemakers.
And, Casey, meanwhile, goes to the school level, where there's the gymnasium that has some, like, big quarter pipes you can get some serious air on. And, Casey got a little too much air, because that was how they learned that in that particular area, you can get so much air that you clip through the ceiling and nearly get stuck on the roof of the gym. On the roof in an area that you are not supposed to be able to reach.
There is no glory.
And when you get up there, if you try looking out through the rest of the world, it's all severely pixelated. There's like white outlines on the trees. The power junction boxes that are up there do not have any clipping on them, so you can just phase right through them. So we just kind of mess around with that until the day is over.
On your word.
So, Friday comes. Casey and I head downstairs to get some breakfast. Remember how I said the rare guys were on a couch in the lobby talking? We head down there at about, I want to say 9 in the morning. They're still down there.
Come and die then.
The only thing that was different is they moved to the couch next to the couch, but they were still down there talking.
On your word.
Also, like as we were walking out of the place we got breakfast from, Rob Paulson just walks by us. You know, Animaniacs, Rob Paulson, Pinky and the Brain, Rob Paulson. Did he do Ninja Turtles? I know a bunch of Ninja Turtles voice actors were there too. So anyway, we sit down at this other section of the lobby,
Ready?
which I thought at first that Casey was trying to get a seat close enough to listen into the Rare Guys conversation, but that wasn't what happened. But anyway, we're there. Andrew, Casey's agent for a lot of these things, comes by to talk. And he was also working with a number of other guests who were there at the time. Particularly, there were a number of voice actors for Baldur's Gate 3 at the event. And one of them was with Andrew and sat down and had a long talk with us. It was Scott Foster. He voices the Emperor Mind Flayer in Baldur's Gate 3. And the conversation went a bunch of different places. I remember, like, giving a little U.S. North America sports knowledge by explaining the Four Nations ice hockey tournament and how, like, USA versus Canada, there were 3 fights that broke out in the first minute of play. But a recurring, like, pattern throughout this event was, meet Baldur's Gate 3 voice actor, Baldur's Gate 3 voice actor turns out to be pretty cool. And there were like 7, 8 of them at this event. You'd love to make your way down to France at some point. Le Mans is on your bucket list. You know what's on my bucket list? Other than the Louvre? The Champs-Élysées. If I can ride a bike on it, all the better.
You fools! You let them scatter. Now we shall have to drag them out again. The people must see what a
Eventually the time comes where we have to start making our way to the event space. This is at
And who keeps hanging?
a little after noon local time. So we all get a shuttle and start heading over there, and I get my first decent glimpse at what Phoenix is like. Phoenix has cable cars, or street cars, or whatever you want to call them. I just note that because I haven't seen those in a very, very long time. But this took place at an Arizona Convention Center,
Edge left and stick to the shadows. The Adventurers Guild is
and the hotel is actually technically across from the street from the convention center. However, you can't just walk across the street and go in, because there are a bunch of shops in the way. So the shuttle takes us around the building, and then to the loading area, and you go through a security check, and then you go down into the basement levels, and then you go down again to an even deeper level. Because the main level where the exhibit hall is kind of far underground. And I was thinking this, I actually said it later, and Casey kind of agreed. It looked like we were driving through that one part of Dead Rising, where you're just in the tunnels that are full of zombies and trying to drive your way through. So anyway, it is as we were going through there that... Sorry. So we get into the event space, and we finally see like what the layout is for all the autograph tables, and there are a shit ton of autograph tables. There was a dedicated like guest autograph space, but they had so many guests that they couldn't fit everybody in there. So there's like another line of people doing autographs that like trickles off to one side of the exhibit space, and then there's another God, I'm trying to think of how to describe this. And then there's a bunch of vendors, and then there's another space with like 5 guys signing autographs. And they're all related to each other because they're all Mortal Kombat guys. It's like the Pacina brothers, Niemeyer, the guy who does the arcade cab art, was there too.
one leg, one arm. Is it a Fashan? I've sung songs about them. I never thought I'd see one.
All the monsters of legend.
Sorry, just trying not to get myself killed. There's a lot of cities where you can rent bikes in France, so you should be fine. Noted. Noted. So this is where we finally see where the table is in relation to everybody else. So, Casey and Kira are usually next to each other, but this time there's Casey, and then there's an autograph grading / verification table, and then there's a concrete pillar, and then there's Kira's table. So at any given point, we could see the line for Kira, but we could not actually see Kira.
Ready for orders. I salute you.
Now that's on the left side of Casey's table. On the right side of Casey's table is David Bateson. If you don't know who that is, he's Agent 47 from the Hitman games. Not only that, he also just happens to look like Agent 47. And he plays into this big time. The entire weekend, he was wearing the suit with the red tie. He had gloves on his hand most of the time. And he even, he had a shaved head. And he had the barcode on the back of his head.
Ready?
So, autographs start, and Friday is kind of slow. Which is sort of expected, because if you're relying on a lot of locals to show up, then they kind of have to be off work before they can actually get to you. We do take a bit of a break for lunch, which this place had a green room for the guests and staff, which was you went up an elevator into this room, and the room had a couple windows where you could see over the entire exhibit space and guest autograph space. And while we were up there, we wound up sitting at a table with David Bateson, as well as Scott from earlier. Scott Foster, I mean. Both, again, very pleasant guys. They end up leaving so that they can do some stuff at their table. And then Magnus Brun sits down with us. Magnus is in The Last Kingdom, Call of Duty, one of the, I think it was Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla he was in. And again, super chill, really nice guy. I pretty much have nothing bad to say at all about any of the guests we had any interactions with.
At your command. Please excuse me.
So the day keeps going on. Eventually there comes a point where, Eventually there comes a point where there's a friend of Casey and I who we're trying to meet up with to get him a badge for the event. He goes by Dusk. It's a screen name. And we go out to registration and get him the badge. And along the way we find this event-specific Game Expo booth. And they're giving out copies of this movie called Max Reload and the Nether Blasters, which I have never heard of. However, I do have a copy of that movie now, so I guess I have to give it a watch at some point. So we get him the badge, we're heading back to autographs, and along the way, we end up cutting through some of the dealer space, and holy shit, I know it's called Game On Expo, but there was an overwhelming amount of video games that people were selling. Either from, legit full-on shops, or people just, temporarily getting a booth and then just saying, here's my shit, buy something. Crossing your fingers it's not top of the bottom material. Oh, me too. I mean, I'm going in with no expectations. Now, another thing about this event is that many of the vendors there were very wise to who was attending as a guest. And as such, you saw several vendors there who would specifically put out merchandise that some of the guests were involved with. there was one person, one vendor, I should say, that they had on display like a box copy of GoldenEye, copies of Perfect Dark. Steve Downes was there, so they had a bunch of Halo games like very prominently displayed. Ninja Turtles stuff was all over the place. Mortal Kombat stuff was all over the place. And I don't know if I should mention this, but there was one point, like before autographs started, where it was just like staff and some VIP attendees who were getting an early look at the vendors. We go to this one vendor, which it turns out was based out of LA. And somehow Casey had never heard of them, but they were Casey was thinking, like, maybe I could buy this box copy of GoldenEye and get the rare guys to sign it. So they attempt to buy this from the vendor. Note that I said attempt, because as Casey is trying to buy this, they're getting in conversation with the vendor about like who they are, what they're doing here, and lets it slip that they are a voice actor and some of the things that they voiced in. And the vendor is like, oh shit, that's so cool. And eventually, the dude just says, you know what, that copy of GoldenEye? Just take it. And we're both like, the fuck? What, really? And he goes, yeah, just plug my store on Instagram or something, and yeah, take it. So, neither of us can believe this shit. But Casey's like, well, I gotta buy something from you. And starts looking at the other things that they have on sale. Now, this place also had a bunch of, like, custom Lego people. Like, there were some of, like, horror movie characters, like Freddy Krueger was one of them. Halloween Michael Myers was one of them. If I remember correctly, I think that there was like Ghostbusters ones. But anyway, there are also custom Lego people for South Park. It's like the 4 main kids from South Park. And Casey was wearing an orange jacket that made them look a lot like Kenny. Something that many people commented on throughout the weekend. And they are a South Park fan anyway, so they're like, can I just buy these off of you? And the guy again comes up to him and says, no, just take them. And Casey's just incredulous, like, I'm trying to give you money. And Casey's like, is there something I could sign for you? Or something? But then the guy's just like, nah, whatever. So I have a feeling that at some point Casey's going to show up at that shop and just buy a bunch of shit to say thank you. Oh, it was also while wandering around those vendors that I saw just all the ways you can ruin an SNES cart. I remember there were some N64 games that some dude carved their initials into the top of each one. And there was also an SNES cart that had someone's address written on it. Yeah.
Do not fear me, friend. Yes, I am a fatherite, but I no longer take orders from Bishop Henrid or...
Always on point with the Simpsons references, Blondie. Thank you for that.
For they have abandoned the Sword Father's tenets. Thus, I have broken with them, and come here to this refuge.
So eventually, we wrap up for the day. And,
If you seek
sorry, got lost in the dialogue options.
bless you, friends.
Eventually, we wrap up for the day. We head back to the hotel and we start strategizing what to do for dinner. And it wasn't going to just be us. Dawn and Alejandro were also going to come with us. Now, as we're doing that, we're up, like, not at the top floor. We're like little under halfway up the hotel. So we would have like 10 floors to go down to get to like ground level. It's just tall enough to discourage you from using the stairs if the elevator is too slow.
Aye.
But the elevators were in fact so slow that we just said, fuck it, we're going to find the stairs and use those.
Welcome, friend. I'm Reza.
So we do use the stairs, and it takes a while to get down, but we do get down. And the stairs lead out one side of the building, and as we're getting to the lower levels, I can hear the music, and it sounds like there's these shops, like, not shops, like kiosks and food trucks and stuff set up outside, and I can hear music blaring, and I'm thinking, that sounds familiar.
New folks.
And as the door swings open,
Brave husband.
I hear,
Always
it's time for the percolator. It's time for the percolator. It's time for the percolator. That's what was playing the entire time.
You need it.
So it's me, Casey, Kira, Alejandro, and Dawn. And we're trying to head to this one pizza place that's like a block or two away.
Here we are. I told Orlo not to let
I can't remember the exact name of it. It's like something Bianco.
Give it a try.
Left all their valuables behind.
But what about the monsters? What if we get eat?
Ah, shit, I need a lockpick for that.
And if we're caught, well,
We eventually find our way to that restaurant, but the wait for it was going to be, like, way too long. And by way too long, I mean over an hour. So we said, screw this, let's just try to find somewhere else we can go. We were all kind of in the mood for pizza, so we were looking up pizza places. And
What you want?
Alright, I'm just doing all of this real quick.
That's the tune. Welcome, friend. Hello.
We eventually decide to go to this one place called, I think it was Doughboy's Pizza. And you know what? It was really good. They made like these little 12-inch pizzas. And you picked the toppings for it, and they also had stuff like mozzarella sticks. And we all just managed to snag a table inside. And yeah, it was really good. I have zero complaints.
Friends, lend me your ears a moment. Well, friends, seems the Fatherites have decided to wipe us
We all go back to the hotel, and in the process, we wound up meeting another voice actor for Baldur's Gate 3, Dave Jones.
scapegoat.
He was Halcyon, I believe it was.
In peace again.
And again,
Prove to those bastards
pretty cool guy.
that we're not the enemy. And the best way to do that is to bring them the enemy.
Now Friday was
Now,
actually kind of exhausting
to the elves and dwarves
for all of
to
us.
petition their help.
And
That
I don't know when exactly I fell asleep. It was after 11, but I don't know how long after 11. Saturday comes, and I am the first person in the room to wake up. No alarms went off, I just woke up at like 6 a.m. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be at the event space earlier today anyway, so I'm just going to get my morning routine out of the way. So, I get a shower, I get dressed, I shave, I brush my teeth. Well, I also went downstairs and got a quick breakfast, then came back upstairs, ate it, brushed my teeth. And it was a good thing I did, because that saved a lot of time for later in the day, and we were able to catch a pretty early shuttle to the event space. So we go through the Dead Rising tunnels, and we're in this, like, behind the curtain lounge area, and just chatting to a couple of people. And then Tony Hawk walks by. And Tony Hawk, just to give the full establishment of this, some guests were only there for 1 or 2 days, some were there for all 3 days. Tony was only going to be there for Saturday. So, Saturday was the day where you basically saw 1 in every 8 people in attendance carrying a skateboard deck or a copy of a Tony Hawk video game or something to that effect. Oh, that's another thing. There were plenty of people who were selling, like, unique skateboard decks at the, like, various vendors saying, sign this, well, excuse me, buy this and get it signed. I should also note that Tony was walking by, and he had a police escort. In fact, there were plenty of members of the Phoenix Police Department in attendance throughout. So Tony walks by, and like, I usually don't get starstruck anymore, but just based on the level of exposure I've had to Tony Hawk and the amount of time that I've been involved with things related to him, I did have that moment of like, oh shit, that's him. And then it happened again a few minutes later, because Don Bluth passes by. Don Bluth, of course, like, God. I'm just trying to name one thing that he... Okay. Secret of Nim. Land Before Time. All Dogs Go to Heaven. Titan AE. All the Dragon's Lair stuff. Space Ace. Like, I knew that he was there. Anastasia, Thumbelina, Pebble and the Penguin. So we're just naming everything now. And that was another moment of, oh shit, it's him. But anyway, back into business mode. We eventually make our way back to the autograph tables. And it is much busier than Friday, as you might expect. And a lot of different people are showing up. These 2 guys walk up to the table, and they just start talking. And talking. Like, after 30 seconds, one of them lets it slip that they have this, like, Carcat Homestuck plushie, which is relevant to Casey because they voiced Carcat for one thing. But instead, these guys, I cannot remember a single fucking thing they said. They were just going on and on and on. They went on for like 20 minutes. And I'm thinking, this is going to go somewhere, right? But it doesn't. They eventually just stop and go, okay, take care, and they leave. I have no idea what the point was.
If you need some kit, peek in those crates. Won't do to go around defenseless in days like these.
I was waiting for a punchline that just never came. So I need to mention something else about Tony Hawk and him being there. So he does have a table in the autograph space. It's in the corner closest to these sets of doors that act as an exit only. And not only that, there's a big divider curtain that separates him from the rest of the autograph line. So the only way you can see Tony Hawk's table is if you're walking directly in front of it. Also, there is not actually a line to Tony Hawk in the traditional sense. What they did, since they were anticipating a whole lot of foot traffic for him, was they had you go outside the exit doors, and then you would talk to this person at a desk out there about what you want him to sign, and then they would give you a quote-unquote ticket. It was really just a post-it note that they wrote stuff on. And after a certain amount of time, they would let like 6 or 7 people through the doors, and they'd stand in front of Tony's desk. And apparently they were anticipating so many people that they were trying to be like pretty expeditious about this, be really efficient about making sure as many people got signatures from him as possible. Because we met a couple of other people who were getting stuff signed from him, and the line seemed long, but apparently it only took them like 10-15 minutes of waiting before they got up to Tony Hawk and managed to get their stuff signed. Said people, by the way, were people Casey knew who, I think they did like sound engineering or something, music work. I know one of them also does voice work. But, yeah, we wound up hanging out with them through much of the day. Again, really cool, really chill people. So, I brought something that I wanted Tony Hawk to get signed. Specifically, I wound up getting a skate deck that I wanted to get signed from him. But not just any skate deck. It was the deck to the first skateboard I ever rode. It's a Veriflex skateboard, which is a really old brand. It's from like the late 80s. It has like grip tape that splits in the middle and just has the word Ollie written in orange lettering. Huge kicktail, small nose. The underside is like this art of a dude doing an Ollie. You can tell how old it is because there's rust all over the screws that are holding it in place. There's like plastic railings under the nose, tail, and sides.
Welcome, adventurer.
So I was going to take this to get it signed, and I couldn't do it with my normal duffel bag because the deck was too big for it to fit. So I had to borrow a piece of luggage that my wife's parents gifted to us for a future trip we're planning. It was the only thing big enough to like properly contain it. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted by something else on my phone. So anyway, I'm in line with this old as hell skate deck, and like I was in line during what was supposed to be the lunch break. Casey went to lunch. I decided this was like the one chance I would have to do this. So I opted to just stand in line and skip lunch entirely. So I get in line. I eventually get up to Tony Hawk. Get my Veriflex board signed. Apparently it was one of the older things that he had signed for most of that day. He said, "Scott, thanks for coming out." We fist bumped, and that was it. I'll admit I was feeling kind of lightheaded after I did that. Even it's just a basic ass interaction, but it's also a basic ass interaction with Tony Hawk. And Casey eventually also got to hook up with Tony Hawk as well, although not in the autograph line. They put aside like 3 to 5 minutes where it was basically just Casey interacting with Tony Hawk, and that was really cool of him to do that. Also, Tony signed their copy of Project 8, so there's that. Anyway, we go back to the autograph signings. And, oh, hi, Waddle. You're sounding the hunting horn for this? Hold on. Hopefully this doesn't blow out the mic. The horn fell. Okay, nothing broke. Crisis averted. So, we head back to the autograph signings. And after a while, this person comes up with a stroller. And we're thinking, okay, what is this? It was a fan. And it was a fan who he unzips like the cover, pulls back the hood over the carriage. It's a cat. It was a very old pet cat named Socks, who was also a very friendly cat. I don't know how he was able to like go around the event space with this, but yeah, we just wound up marveling at the cat for a bit. Kira especially, because hold on. Okay, yeah. Kira especially, because Kira has done a lot of work with like cat shelters. Kira has 5 cats at home, I believe. 4 or 5. I always forget which. But anyway, there was that fan. And then I think I forgot to mention this before. There was another fan who showed up the prior time. Who, it was just this dude that was carrying a violin. He comes up to the table, and he performs the entire theme song to Neon Genesis Evangelion. He doesn't say anything. He just performs that song and then another song from the soundtrack of the series. And then he holds up like this note card saying, "Hi, my name is..." I think his name was Accelerator or something like that. He had a panel that he was doing. Like, he wasn't speaking, so I was trying to think... like, I had a question I wanted to ask him. And then I figured, well, he could probably still sign this, so I said, "Now, do you learn your music by looking up tabs and practicing from those? Or do you learn it by ear?" And he looks at me, and he just points to his ear. And I'm like, yes, another one of us. Because that's how I learn the songs I do for strumming the bass line, is I just listen to the song and then figure it out. So there was another break that we had, and that was when we learned that there were some tournaments going on that were relevant to our interests. Specifically, there was a competition for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And we also learned that it was going to take 2 hours to get through that shit. So neither of us would be able to dedicate enough time to do it. However, while I was in line for, getting the autograph from Tony, Casey went over to the area where the competition was happening. And while there, someone decided to challenge Casey to score attack for Pro Skater 1 and 2. Now, to those who don't know, Casey is extremely good at the Tony Hawk games. Very, very, very good at the Tony Hawk games. Like, 1,000,000 in a combo is not even a challenge to them. And this dude, within 5 seconds of the round starting, realizes, I have made a mistake. Yeah? I just dropped my phone on the keyboard. That's what that was. So anyway. So they're like 3 to 5 seconds into the score attack round, and this guy realizes, oh, I have made a mistake. I think that the final score was like, this guy had 99,000 something points, and Casey had like 2 point something million. But it was something just absolutely ridiculously lopsided like that. Oh god, it won't stop. How do I make it stop? Fucking hell. Okay, we're good. So anyway, now I should note that I mentioned there was like an autograph authenticator table next to where Casey was sitting. So yes, it was going to be one of those events where the Funko Brigade showed up. Just people with wagons full of those ugly-ass Funko Pops. I will say, however, the Funko Brigade didn't really bother Casey much at all. Keep in mind, when I say Funko Brigade, you can have a Funko Pop and not be part of the Funko Brigade. The Funko Brigade is for the people who are just more cynical about it. Like, how much can I get for this on eBay? Those kind of people. Because there were people who came up to the table with, like, a bunch of Funko Pops. But it was people who had, like, kids with them. And they and the kids were both extremely knowledgeable about the character the Funko Pop was, the series they're in. Like, there was one kid who had a Pokemon Funko Pop, and they were playing Pokemon Go at the autograph table. So they clearly knew what they were doing.
We will die here, but it will be glorious.
Also, another telltale sign that they weren't part of the brigade. When they were doing the when they asked for their signatures, they wanted it dedicated to somebody, like to John, to Matthew, to whoever. And if you're reselling, you typically don't want to do that. Yeah, that is where I want to go.
These are measly foes.
Oh, I think the worst, like, Funko Brigade people are the ones who pretend that they're not doing that and rope their kids into the charade. Like, I have less respect for people who do that than the people who are just very blatant about, yeah, I'm probably going to sell this later. So, in the middle of the signings, Casey has to, like, walk away from the table a little bit. So, I'm just holding down the fort until they come back in, like, 3 or 4 minutes. It is in that moment that this guy walks up to the table. He's not looking at the prince at all, he's just looking at me. And he comes up to me and goes, SCXCR? And that triggers my fight or flight response.
To friendship.
I hope you brought enough for everyone.
And I'm like, yeah, because I think I mentioned that I was going to Arizona, but I don't remember specifically saying that I would be at that event. So, like, how did they... And then they say, I don't know if you remember, like, back in 2010, 2011, sometime around there, there was a forum that we were on, and I think his username was, like, I'm not a noob, and I remembered that. But there was this really old forum that myself and some River City Gamers people were on. There were other people outside of them that I also talk with to this day. And Marcus, Armac21 was on there as well. And God, what a fucking nostalgia bomb. Like, meeting Tony and having that guy show up in the same day. Like, my mind was being pulled in 8 different directions that day. But yeah, he was really cool about it. And just talked about, like, video making stuff for a little bit. And then he was on his way. And, like, 10 seconds after he leaves, Casey comes back. And I'm like, you're not gonna believe what just fucking happened.
What are you waiting for?
So it's around that time that Dusk comes back. He's more local to this, so he can just kind of come and go as he pleases. And it's also around this time that we have to go set up for a panel. The panel, it's funny, because the description on the Game On Expo site said Casey had a panel at 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. The problem is, the event's not open 5:30 on Sunday. The actual schedule said it was, like, Saturday at some point in, like, the middle of the afternoon. And the panel was just called Talking with Casey Mangelo. And if you look up the schedule, the description of the panel is just Casey's bio. So no one knows what the fuck the panel's about. So Casey says, you know what? I'm just going to talk about whatever I want. So, talk a little bit about voice acting, but you can tell Casey was really enthusiastic to talk about modding video games, doing, like, hex editing for video games. And then they open things up to Q&A. And I have the urge So I start looking up some stuff on my phone, and unfortunately I had to use my phone as reference for this, otherwise I would have gotten video of it. But for reference, Casey was in the latest Monster Hunter game. So they did a shit ton of work on that. So I pull up the guide for speaking Monster Hunter language. And when it's my turn, I say, Ekira, duturu arribe, Christopher, which is basically a way of saying, hello, what's your weapon of choice? Here's the best part. Casey proceeds to give a roughly 10 to 15 second response entirely in the Monster Hunter language. I wish I had video of this. And once they were done, I just gave a simple Yune, thank you, and the panel moved on. Monster Hunter recognized. Or I should say, Monster Hunter mentioned. I can't tell you how I knew Casey would be able to respond to that. But I had a feeling Casey would be able to respond to that. So anyway, the panel wraps up. We head back to autographs. And the day is going much faster than the previous day. Eventually we just wrap up. And we gather our stuff. We head out to the shuttle. And we're in the shuttle heading back to the hotel, and I step out of the shuttle at the hotel, and this yellow piece of paper like falls off of my shoe. And I'm like, the fuck is that? Because I brought Post-its with me, but this didn't look like one that I brought myself. I go down to pick it up. It is a Post-it from one of the Funko guys saying, like, if you could sign this here or use this quote. I don't know how that got on my shoe and stayed on my shoe to the shuttle and to the hotel, but anyway, we meet up with Casey's friends who have done audio work with him again, and they walk in and they're like, so on the way here, there are some people who just gave us free weed, and they give us these tubes of like cannabis. Apparently it was some people promoting some like cannabis delivery service, and they got like 2 tubes of cannabis and this flyer that you could scan with a QR code to go to their website. Just a quick note to anyone out there. First of all, do everything responsibly. Whether it's drinking or whatever, do it responsibly and in moderation. But my word of advice is, if someone you don't know comes up to you on the street and just hands you a couple tubes of cannabis, maybe think twice about smoking it. So that led to us sitting in the lobby and just talking with various people who came and went for, I think it was like 2 hours. We were originally saying, all right, we're just going to rest here for a little bit and then drop stuff off at the hotel room and then go get something to eat. That did not happen. Not at all. Because we're out there talking, and like various people from the weekend come up. Scott Foster from Baldur's Gate 3 again shows up. Mark Whitten was there, who I hadn't seen since Too Many Games back in like 2023, and he was still a real cool guy. Alejandro and Dawn were there as well. And the whole time I'm distracted because we are out in front of that restaurant from before. And they have all these TVs up that are showing sports. And they are showing the Final Four of the NCAA basketball tournament. Specifically, the match between Houston and Duke. I almost blanked on Houston's name for some reason. And I'm just going to say, it seemed pretty clear to me from how people were reacting to the game that a number of people did not want Duke to win. And, I mean, it's not much of a spoiler at this point because the game already ended. But, Duke had a pretty good lead, and they blew it. So that made me happy.
Adventurers.
So eventually, we do just say, you know what? That restaurant is right there, let's eat there again. What I didn't realize was, Casey told people about what I did with the cheese before. And in fact told, her audio buddies, about what I'd done. And, I felt obligated to get the jumbo pretzel again. And, well, I took the cheese, and I chugged all of it again. This time, however, Casey took my phone and filmed it. So when I do the YouTube cut of this, this is where I'm gonna splice in that video.
Lord, go in peace, child.
She talks as sweet as honey, but I still wouldn't tell her much. Fatherites stick together, no matter what they say.
So, that wraps up. We end up going back up to the hotel room for the night, and we do a bit of two-player on Tony Hawk's Project 8. Immediately, on startup, the screen for my player is just a gray pillar in space. That fixes itself, but I also get stuck in the wall while wall running multiple times. And I also find a roof overhang that if you approach it at a certain angle, at the quarter pipe beneath it, you'll just phase straight through it.
Yep. What can I do?
And that kind of leads us into the night, so let's just go on to Sunday. Both Casey and I end up waking up pretty early. We wake up at like 7 in the morning. And we're like, you know what? Fuck it. More video games. I brought a few games myself. And one of the things I brought, that I haven't actually played before was Gran Turismo 5. And that's where I noted that, oh, the pretentious bullshit from Gran Turismo 7 wasn't a new thing. It also has a very, like, blasé menuing approach that doesn't really inspire much. The racing itself is like still perfectly fine. You can still have fun with that. But wasn't really much of a fan of the A-Spec leveling system that like blocks off certain cars from you. And at this point, we just start like cycling through a bunch of different games to try out. Like, I decided that because Casey did a voice for Unicorn Overlord, I thought I'm going to introduce them to another Vanillaware game. So we played, Tiger, it was Gran Turismo 5 that we played. So I decide, let's play another Vanillaware game, and I throw in Dragon's Crown. Casey, like, immediately notices, like, the art similarities, and, like, seemed kind of into the whole beat-em-up aspect of it. So that went over well. SSX for the PS3 did not, because the tutorial was going at a snail's pace. We eventually bailed on that because there didn't seem to be a two-player option. And then we put the PS2 on and started playing Time Splitters. We did a bot match, and I'm just happy that I did not finish last. Couldn't get past the impossible tutorial level. Casey eventually did get past the tutorial shit. But, like, after it had repeatedly said, you can't connect, you can't connect, you can't connect, you're gonna miss out on these online things, you can't connect. Oh, I should probably level up.
Come back if you want more. Or to drink.
I think for now, I might prioritize attack. Yeah, because I want to be able to break those up if I can.
What the fuck is that?
I know, right, Oni? So, we eventually, like, everybody gets awake, and we hit the shuttle, get back to the event space, and, I should note, there was a guy who was selling the limited run of, the Shin Megami Tensei 5 skateboard deck. He was one of those people that had the sign that said, like, buy this to get it signed. He showed up at Casey's autograph table, and he had one that was signed by Tony Hawk, and had Casey sign that as well, and then just straight up gave one of them to Casey. Like, Casey didn't have one of those, because they didn't know about the release of them until after they were already gone. So what ensued was like a bartering system of like, okay, how many signed prints or other shit I can give you will equate to this.
This is the place. Blood everywhere. Terrible. Ah, but maybe it can lead us to where there was Duke. Have a look around.
Now there were a bunch of other fans who showed up on Sunday throughout the day. There was one that got kind of flustered and stumbled over their words. They were trying to talk about Carcat Vantis from Homestuck and Chilchuck Timms from Dungeon Meshi. And they wound up blending them together to become Chill Kit Kat.
Who's that?
Just lurking. Oh, sure. No problem. And then a reseller comes up. And remember how I said that I have less respect for resellers who pretend that they're fans than the one who just make it blatantly obvious that they're trying to resell stuff? Well, this guy comes up. He has 3 Steelbook editions of Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. He comes in, and he has photos on his phone of where he wants Casey to sign this. No dedication, no to whoever, just signing it. And when he pays for the signings, he uses his card. His card has the name of his fucking collectibles company on it. Just absolutely no effort to even pretend. And you know what? I actually respect that slightly. I hate what he does, but I respect that slightly more than the people who pretend. Okay, I don't have that song yet.
Maybe we could find another way, eh?
Forget it.
I shouldn't be doing this yet. We eventually decide to take a break. And we head up to the green room space, and pretty much all the Mortal Kombat guys are there. Like the mocap actors from the early games. Niemeyer's up there, the guy who did like the cabinet art for that and a bunch of other games. That's another, oh shit, it's them kind of moment.
Here, they were heading this way.
Alright, so, there's something you need to know about me for this next part of the recap. I did say, oh shit. So one thing that I struggle with a lot, still struggle with to this day, is social anxiety. And my response to feeling that is to completely clam up and not say a goddamn thing. So, if I stop talking at some point, you might see me pull up Notepad and just start typing what I'm trying to say. That's the disclaimer for this story. So, when I went into this, I knew that Don Bluth was going to be here. And I was planning to get something signed from him for my wife, who is a big fan of a lot of the stuff he's done. We didn't really have much of a chance to be able to go to Don Bluth's table. One, because we were constantly running autographs or running around doing other stuff. And 2, because Don Bluth constantly had a line. As he should.
Stop a minute. There's an old trout cache round here somewhere. Before we face these kidnappers, we might want to stock up on a few necessaries.
So I'm trying to figure out...
Chalk mark.
Okay, it's Sunday. It's the last possible day to do this. I don't know how much longer he's going to be at the event. And then, like, how many more chances am I going to have to possibly do this? So I eventually get word of, like, oh, if you just ask the person who's handling the table for him, they should be able to get you in real quick. well, actually, we end up going to the break. Words. We end up going back to the break area, and the description that I had was, look for the lady wearing the Lunchables earrings.
Here, you'll need this to hook that bit
Which-
that sticks out up there.
Not a sentence I was expecting to hear, but there was in fact a person back there wearing Lunchables earrings. And Casey is with me at the time,
Dangerous ground.
because I didn't realize it at the time, but Casey was a fan of like the Fievel stuff, American Tail, that sort of thing. And the person is right there, and I clam up and I don't say a damn thing. It's kind of embarrassing to say this, but Casey is the one who reaches out to them for me. And then Lily's like, oh yeah, sure, we could get you in real quick. Don Bluth was at a panel at the time, but he was going to be back in like 5 minutes. So we go all the way around, behind all of the curtains for the people who are signing stuff. And we end up out in front of Don Bluth's table. And I'm just looking over like all the stuff that he has out on the table. He has a print for pretty much everything he's done like outside of Disney. So there's a lot of my childhood on that table. Things that stand out to me are like Titan AE, Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven. He has Dragon's Lair stuff there too, Space Ace. So, another thing is, I tried, like, making sure I had some money set aside that I would be able to afford this. So I'm looking over everything, and I'm fully expecting, like, yeah, Secret of Nim is another one, too. I'm fully expecting that I'm just getting something from my wife. That was the mission. That was the one thing I really cared about. She's a fan of, like, Anastasia, Thumbelina. I knew she had something Anastasia already, so I was going to get her a print of Thumbelina signed by Don Bluth, dedicated to her. And then
I hope. And oh. Aye. Good fortune to you.
Now, as this is going on, Casey is messaging a friend who they know also likes some of Don's stuff, and is like, you want me to grab something for you? And this person's being very wishy-washy about it. So Casey being Casey is like, you don't say something, I'm just gonna get something for you anyway.
Try back tomorrow.
And
Listen, treasure.
Sure. You see that? Time to get started. Bottoms up.
So, to make a long story short,
I'm busy.
someone covered for a Dragon's Lair print for me. And a photo with Don Bluth. So, like, I knew Don Bluth had a role in... Fuck. I knew Don Bluth had a role in my childhood. I just didn't realize until I saw everything sitting out on the table just how much of one he had. Like, one of the earliest arcade games I played was Dragon's Lair 2. I was 7 years old. I had no idea how the fuck the game worked. I just immediately died. But I still vividly remembered, like, all the scenes from that game. To the point that, like, a few years later, I just instantly recognized it when I saw it again. So, Don Bluth does come back. Ace gets something for himself and their friend. I end up, with a little help, getting something for my wife and myself. And this person also covered for a photo with Don. Fucking hell. And, I will say, Don is pretty old now, but he still has, like, all his faculties about him. He's still pretty energetic and still sharp as a tack. I mentioned to him that my wife draws. So, so he gives me some advice to pass on to her, which I did. And then, as a way to, like, break the mood, like, he made some comment about my age. Like, me being, like, a youngin' or something like that. And, I had to break some news to him, dude, I'm actually 40 years old. And he was like, I don't believe that. And I'm ready to pull out my driver's license and show it to him. He's like, okay, no, I believe you. So, So we get the stuff signed, get the photo, basically say thanks for everything, and go on our way. And then Casey is like, I have never seen you act this way around someone.
I don't know what the hell he's thinking. What? I don't know what the hell he's thinking. What? I don't know what the hell he's thinking. What?
What a fucking time for a raid. Thank you, Nightman. So Casey's like, after we walk away from Don Bluth's setup, is like, man, I've seen fans at my table get that way. I have never seen you behave that way around someone. And then pulls out their camera and films me. Like, who did you just talk to? What did he say? So I had to do like a quick come down and recovery, like back into business mode. So that happened. Fucking hell. So we get back to the autograph table. And fans are gradually trickling in throughout the course of the day. The dude with the cat socks comes back. And this time, he takes the cat out of the stroller and puts him on the ground. So,
If you think we can do it, then we can do it. I hope.
And Casey comes around from behind the desk and is like petting the cat, and the cat's like not moving around much, just kind of taking everything in. I'm standing like 5 to 6 feet away from the cat, also on the other side of the table. I kneel down to get closer to level with it. And this cat almost instantly walks over to me and starts rubbing his head against my knee. And in my head, I'm thinking,
Away I go.
like in my head, I'm thinking through all of this. This is too wholesome. Like everything happening today is too wholesome. Stop it. All of you, stop it. Not you in the chat. That was just what I was thinking at the time. So things are starting to wrap up finally. The event's winding down. Fortunately, because there were so many people who were like autograph minded in the vendor space, there was actually a person there who was selling sleeves and plastic slips that you could put various prints in. And the ones Don was selling were not just 8x10s, they were 11x17s, so they're pretty large. And this person, like, they had those covered. It was a vendor who was like right behind Miley Flanagan's booth. Miley Flanagan was the voice of Naruto. Oh, by the way, Miley Flanagan was there. Like Cam Clark was there. AVGN was there. For some reason, the Honky Tonk Man was there. It was Miley Flanagan? Naruto. So we get all of the, so we get everything put into the sleeves, and we get to, because we had to check out of the hotel before we came to the event, our luggage was in this dedicated area that the staff was overseeing. So I basically had to figure out on the fly, okay, how am I going to pack these 11x17s with the skateboard deck in a way that nothing will get damaged from being tossed around between airports. So what I eventually did was I basically just took all of my clothes and created like a level surface with the skate deck, because the deck was at kind of an angle in the bag to be able to fit into it. And then the clothes that I had left, I put evenly over the other side, so it would be protected in from both angles. So, a bunch of the guests are backstage, and they're gradually shuttling people out to go to the airport. And it's as this is starting to happen that I get a message on my phone. And let me see if I can read that message for you right now. And I quote, "We're sorry for the inconvenience, but your flight from Phoenix was cancelled. You are rebooked on flight name April 6th at 11:59 p.m. That is what I got at about like 5 p.m.
You must be expunged.
I was supposed to fly out. I was flying out from the same airport as like Casey and Kira and company, but I would be waiting like an hour and a half after they like went on their way. Now I was going to be waiting 4 hours.
Here to serve.
However, we're already going for the shuttle anyway. I say, you know what? I don't fucking care. I will just find shit to do in the meantime. So, it's me, Casey, Kira, and Dawn Bennett was actually with us too. And all of us just went to the airport at the same time. Now, it wasn't entirely convenient because we just went to the terminal they were aiming for because they were taking off before me. They get all of their bags and stuff checked. And then,
Save you. Aye?
sorry, I'm trying to think about this and tell the story at the same time. They get their bags checked. I still have my bags. So in order to get to the terminal that I can check my bags in at, we have to take this tram to the next terminal. And I'm like, it's okay if you guys just want to split here. And they're like, no, we'll go on the tram with you, and then you can check your bags, and then we'll get something to eat. And I'm like, okay. So we do that. Thankfully, there's not a huge line for checking in all of my stuff.
At your command.
Ready.
So, their bags are checked in. I get my bags checked in. We take the tram back to their terminal. And then we basically just get burgers and kill time until they have to head out. I got a quick photo with the group. And then they went on their way through TSA. And I had several hours of time that I needed to kill. Also, my notes just scrolled up a whole lot, so I have to find my place again. So the thing with my flight is, I was originally going from Phoenix to Atlanta, Georgia, then to Columbus, because I couldn't get a direct connection. This time, however, I was going from Phoenix to Minneapolis, St. Paul to Columbus. And with everything said and done, I would not actually get to my home airport until sometime after 11 in the morning. So I wander around in the terminal before going through the security check. And then I end up... Oh, I'm still on the wrong character. Oops. I end up just like perusing the tchotchke shops, the gift shops, looking for anything cheap that I could get as maybe a souvenir. And I'm going through this one shop, and they have a bunch of keychains set up. And then I notice some of these keychains are for the Arizona Coyotes hockey team,
Ready for orders.
which does not exist anymore. And H2O Masked Man, if he's still in the chat, I happen to know that he's partial to the Coyotes and will forever wish terrible things upon the people who caused the team to eventually move. So I just like take a picture of the keychains and send it to him. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have done that. But he responded with depressed looking Mike Stoklasa. So anyway, I wound up talking with my mother for a long time. I walked a lot between all of the gates. Because I'm just trying not to fall asleep until I get to the plane. The flight was at, what also didn't help was the time difference. Because Phoenix is on Pacific Standard Time. Or Pacific DT, Pacific Time, whatever. Where I live, I'm on Eastern Time. So with my flights taking off at midnight, that's 3 a.m. my time. Now, the flight that I was reassigned to, there was a bunch of spillover in terms of passengers and luggage. Because they were basically trying to cram 2 flights worth of passengers onto one, like, airplane. And as such, there were no empty seats, and they were forcing some people to take their checked bags. No, not their checked bags. Their carry-on luggage and check it, because there wouldn't be enough space in the overhead compartments. I get on a plane, and... oh, that was bad.
What should I do?
Oh, I completely botched that turn. Okay. So, for this flight, I end up in a middle seat. Again. A middle seat. No, wait. Shit, that's a different flight. Never mind that. I actually did end up on a middle seat for this one, but I swapped with another person in an adjacent row, because it was like a husband and wife, and by swapping, they would be able to sit next to each other. So instead of sitting in the middle, I wound up with a window seat. And in the middle seat next to me was a 4-year-old girl. Now, if you know my attitude toward children, you can understand that I would be less than enthused about being in this particular situation. However, I will say this girl was pretty well behaved. It probably helped that this was a flight that had movie screens in the backs of the seats, and she was using that to watch Inside Out 2. Which, if you know what the Inside Out movies are about, I thought that the universe was being a little ironic with me. So she was well behaved and actually just wound up falling asleep entirely. Which is fine, except for the 2 or 3 times that she kicked me in her sleep. But I didn't say anything.
Ready when you are. Let me just...
So the plane eventually lands. I get off the plane, and I'm at the G gates. The connecting flight I need to take is at the A gates. So I have to walk to the complete ass opposite end of the airport. Because, like, normally there would be a tram that would take you there. The tram was out of service. Now, the only silver lining in this is that I had a ton of time before I had to get on the next flight. I had like 3 hours or something until my connecting flight would actually like start boarding. However, at this point, it's like 5 in the morning in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Which means, 1, the airport is pretty dead. And 2, pretty much nothing is open. All the shops are closed. Almost all the food places are closed. Like, when I got to the part of the airport where my gates were, there was basically nothing open. And I badly, like, I was really hungry, but I didn't want to have something out of a vending machine. So I just wind up walking around that part of the airport. At some points, just looking for signs of life. And that's another thing is, this airport was undergoing renovation / construction while I was there. So there would be unfinished floors that I'd be walking across. You would see, like, newly installed drywall or shit for the walls that still had to be painted over. Bunch of ceiling tiles were missing. So I eventually find where my terminal is, and this terminal was small. I mean, they were all like this, but there was like a couple dozen seats, and that was it. In some ways, it looked more like a high school classroom than it did like an airport terminal. And when I got to it, I was the only person there. No other passengers, no employees, nothing. So I go, alright, well, I know where I eventually need to be. I need to find food. So I walk 12 terminals back in the opposite direction. By this point, it's about 6 in the morning. And apparently, that is when Brugger's Bagels opens up there. I don't normally have Brugger's Bagels, ever. But when it's the pretty much only option for food, I'll take it over the vending machines.
Here. Passing through.
On your right.
These are
That's lovely.
songs.
So I end up having my food from the bagel place. I go back to the terminal and take a seat to start waiting, and that's when I realize it is really fucking cold in this airport. Like, I will say, when I got off the plane, I realized how cold it was outside. It was like 26, 27 Fahrenheit. Around the time that I started waiting in the terminal for my plane, which was still like a couple hours away. And other people were there too. They were dealing with it better than I was, because I was still just in shorts and a t-shirt. So I'm honestly getting pretty cold and wondering, why is it so goddamn cold in this part of the airport? And like half an hour goes by, other people are starting to show up, and then I hear and I can hear air blowing out of vents, and I'm like, oh, what? They just didn't have the heat turned on for this part of the airport? Are you fucking kidding me? So a lot more time passes. Finally, I can get on board the plane. And the seats on this plane were not set up in 3s, they were set up in 2s. So I didn't have to worry about being in a middle seat. I was sitting on the aisle. The guy next to me just wanted to sleep the whole time. I felt the same way, but I have trouble sleeping on planes. It's just something I really struggle to do. So we take off at about like 8:20 in the morning. And fortunately, the flight is a pretty quick one.
Here to serve. Ready for orders.
So it takes like, I'd say a little under 2 hours for us to end up back at my home airport. And fortunately, I had a friend who had a day off Monday / earlier today. So I finally get off the plane, get my bags, and am waiting in front of the airport a little after 11:30 in the morning. And I got home. By the way, shout out to Halifax for giving me a ride.
What should I do?
I finally got home at about, I want to say, a little before noon.
Command me.
Must not
Ready.
listen.
Ready.
And once I did get home, the first thing I did was I immediately set my luggage down and opened it up to see if everything survived the trip. First thing I get, the skate deck.
You will pay for your heresy.
Unfold the coverings that I put over it. Board's in one piece, signature's fine, we're good. And then the moment of truth. I dig out the clothes, and I pull out the prints. Both of them survive the trip just fine. So we're all good. It all went off without a hitch. So now, extremely tired, but also extremely relieved. I checked a couple things on my computer, said hello to the cat and the snake, let everyone know that I was home, and slept. I only slept for like 2 or 3 hours, but when you're doing it in your own bed for the first time in several days, it is so refreshing. And that was my Game On Expo.
Ready when you are.
At your command.
Here.
Now I'm just gonna try and wrap up this fight.
Here to serve.
I will do this one more time.
These are
What should I do?
holy songs.
Pardon?
There. All right. Okay, I got some levels, but I also want to make sure I grab some of the items around here, if there are any. Also, by the way, shout out to Tiger Uchimaru for coming into the room and offering moral support during the, that part. You know, that one. Okay. I'm wondering if I should play this out. 6 a.m. brain's going to bed. Oh, yeah. You do that one roll. Thanks for hanging out.
Time to hide. Away I go. We can take him.
Who's there? You're all dead. Do you hear me?
Yeah, this looks like a multi-wave fight.
Was that it?
Ready for orders.
Yeah?
Command me.
Damn, that crit meant that point didn't actually count.
To victory.
Get on the job, eh? Oh! Stop it!
I'm gonna hold on to those.
On your word.
Here.
Ready.
Adventurers! Kill him! We'll make you look like
Ready
you were
when
helping
you
the
are.
others.
Taking orders from a human. Time to hide.
At your command.
Oh!
What's that stuff?
What's going on? Stand aside!
Brothers, sisters, why are you doing this? What should I do?
On your word.
Ready.
Hmm.
Command me.
Yeah?
Eating my brain!
At your command. Cheers, friends.
Chuck, chuck, chuck.
What should I do?
Here to serve.
Ow, stop!
Stupid
Okay.
Don't you know you're ready when you are?
Ready for orders.
Yeah?
Okay, good. That was active.
Ready.
Hey, don't walk away. I'm not done with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought we were going. Those sellsword trouts said they was going to leave our bodies here, so it's. They didn't stand a chance. Unarmed against those dirty assassins. Lots of blood and butchery being blamed on Wellbottom Trow lately. Need to get back to Wellbottom and tell Cully. We better leg it. Thanks again.
All right. The opportunity is the thing I care about the most.
You see, Paladin, outcasts and Trow killing honest citizens. They're all in it together. They want to kill us all.
Heathen trash.
All right, thanks for hanging out, Waddle Dee.
Some backup. I'll warn the harbor master.
Wrong one. Oh, definitely want those bile bombs. Yeah, I'm actually gonna try backtracking to this save point, if I can. Not sure if this is the kind where you have to refresh the use. It is. Some of my bitch. Okay, now where's the nearest save point to this thing?
Death awaits us if we take this fight. But I am ready.
Well, I'm not quite that suicidal yet. Yet, being the operative word. Good, good, good. This early on, I definitely want whatever grappling hooks I can find. I'll just find a save point. It won't take that long. There. Now I am going to backtrack to the docks. Just so I'm not having to like remember what exactly I was doing. And speaking of, I kept mentioning the Baldur's Gate 3 actors. I really need to get back to Baldur's Gate 3 at some point. Wait, I ran right past it. What am I doing? Okay. That will do it for me tonight. And I'll probably have to cut this up and make it a video probably for this weekend if I can manage it. But until then, let's see what everybody else is doing. Let's see. Okay, it says Jerry is playing retro. I'm just going to verify very quickly it's not Fortnite. It isn't. Okay, we're rating Jerry. Looks like he's playing one of the Crash games. Not sure which one. But thank you for hanging out and listening to me ramble for a couple of hours. And take care. I'll be back later in the week.
Alright, thanks for the raid, brother. How you doing, man? How was your stream? Just been playing some tag team wrestling. Returning back to this after about 3 weeks. Right now we got all the tracks unlocked. Oh, we need 3 more crystals. Okay. I wasn't gonna unlock it anyway, because that would have been crazy. I'm in a glass case of emotion. That's a very